Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop, Emerald Planet. All the ecology news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's your host, Executive Director of the Emerald Planet, Dr. Sam Lee Hancock.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technologies, services, and products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And as we go to a planet with 9 billion people, how are we going to be able to provide the basic needs that they have, the food, the fuel, the fiber, also the education, health care, business opportunities, and many other things that are needed. And I have someone sitting right beside me who is the queen of all these things. This is Zara Marselian, and she is the founder, president, CEO, very long title there, Zara, La Maestra Community Health Centers and La Maestra Foundation.
Yes.
And welcome to the Emerald Planet.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here.
All the way from San Diego and California, so we're just blessed to have you. Tell us a little bit about both the health centers and then also the foundation.
Sure, I'd love to. La Maestra Community Health Center is a federally qualified health center, and it started 25 years ago. Basically because of the needs of the community. We had 14,000 students there. They identified that they needed healthcare services that were culturally competent in the community, and so we went about seeking some doctors that would be willing to come in and work with very low income, very needy populations. And that was 25 years ago. Here we are now, 14 clinics later, and
incredible. Very
comprehensive services. Last year, over 200,000 patient visits were provided throughout all of our sites. So, you know, we just keep expanding, and it just being there on the border zone and in a food desert and how many other designations, it's, you know, there's just a lot of work to do there, and there's no county hospital in San Diego.
Yeah, it's like Emerald Planet. We keep saying we can't get busier, we can't do more projects, and guess what? Like you, we just keep doing more people, more countries, more everything. But looking at your community, I know you're talking about the food desert, you're talking about at-risk population. Yeah. So we, in a sense, have an image of what is around you, around the centers that you have. Tell us a little more about what's actually surrounding your centers and how you reach out and actually provide the services in those communities.
Sure. Well, you know, because we're very grassroots, we hire people from the community. Our board members are from the community, we're from the communities that we serve, and that's not just ethnic, different cultures, but also if we're serving veterans, we have veterans on our staff, people that are victims of violent crime, domestic victims that are now part of our mainstream, they're also on our staff. So they know how to reach out to these special populations and bring them into the services, no matter what department or unit they go through.
Yeah, looking at this circle of care, I know this is what you call it, and this is something that actually you're quite famous across the United States and even overseas. What is the circle of care?
The circle of care has organically evolved by starting with the service of education, then adding health, and basically paying attention to what those communities need and responding to the needs by increasing access to care. So that's how each one of these areas developed, was because of the need of the community. And now we have this beautiful looking circle of care model. It's very scalable. It's our end game solution for really bringing wellness and achieving many fantastic goals for underserved communities, low-income communities. It really works.
Yeah, and I'm looking at this, we have this up, so tell us a little bit about this circle of care. This is really really very complex. But go through, you have the different color zones on here. What does all this mean?
Well, the red, I put it all red so that we could just say, okay, it's medical, but it's very comprehensive. So, you know, you'll have medical services for all ages. We have specialty services. We have diagnostics, imaging. We're the only clinic in California that has mammography and mobile mammography. And we are like I said, many specialities that we try to bring in the community, because right there you eliminate the need for transportation, translation, others being culturally competent, and frankly, because we serve quite a few uninsured patients that would not be accepted by many specialists in other parts of the city. So we try to bring as many services down into the community as possible. And then from there, we thought, okay, well, green, all the petals that are green represent economic development, and those are the microcredit programs that we offer for the very poorest of poor women to start with. And then we have small businesses that are micro enterprises that we operate, and we then have them be like a training ground for people who might not have marketable services or can't compete in San Diego for jobs, because as we all know, there's not enough jobs either.
Yeah, and this is true all over. But looking at this group right here, now what would people go through and be identified, and then how do you go through this process of making sure that whatever their needs are matched by the services that you have through La Maestra, and then how they go through the system that you have? Because once you take them in, my understanding is that you really want to keep them and provide extensive care throughout their life, and which goes into even helping them get jobs, create their own businesses, and all that.
Yes, and that's the core of, if you look in the center of the circle of care, that's what we're going to be focusing on the next 5 years, is really honing the integration of those services. So let's say you come in for you know, dental services, and it's up to our dental clinics to make sure that you know all of the other services that are available to you, and then making those appointments for you. So it's not like we're just telling you about it and you walk out the door.
Right. Yeah, and the whole thing too, and I think this is something that you really focus on, is that you're matching the services, but as people come into the system, you want to be able to shepherd them through this whole process and then allow them to branch out within the system that you have. That's why it seems like with your circle of care, it just keeps getting larger and more complex and more color codes, you know, to keep up with all this. But matching the needs of your patients to the health, not just of them, but also of the community. I know this is something as part of your mission, as part of your philosophy, to do that, to match the citizens with the services and the needs of the community. How do you do that?
You know, we do that because we have an excellent staff that, you know, is there not just because it's a job, but because they really value those intrinsic values they are able, rewards that they're able to gain from working in the grassroots communities that we're in. And cross-training them, and they themselves want to learn about, gee, you know, there's this new program, and we want to know more information so that when our patients or our clients come in, we'll be able to refer them over. That's, for example, our legal advocacy service that we've added on, for what, now 4 or 5 years. And that, an example of that is, let's say somebody comes in for a patient visit and they identify that they have some issues, or there's certain flags that go up during the exam, and we're able to then identify, you know, the providers or the staff, and then they can get referred over for those legal services, whether it's domestic violence. That's how we've identified victims of human trafficking, even from our microcredit programs.
That's just, it's just incredible.
Because of the training and the staff, they want to know what to look for, and how do you explain, and how do you invite people to, and keep keep a hold of them, do that case management.
Well, that's the whole thing. That's why you're able to keep people, because you're really working with your staff because you want to keep them. You identify them,
Yes, we
they're
do.
tough to get, and then you don't want to let them go. And then, of course, they're representing the community. And this is the first time we met. You talked about how the people that come through, you identify them as patients that go into the system. You then invite them and then really have them evolve into the various boards that you have. So you have this ongoing communications between the community, the patients, the organization itself, the city. I mean, you're really involving everybody. So everybody's a stakeholder, in a sense, is in San Diego.
Yes, they are, and they really are proud of that, and it has a life of its own.
Well, these are good-looking facilities, but one of the things that really caught my attention, because we really focused on the green world in Emerald Planet, is how you really incorporate environmental quality into everything that you do. So it's not just, well, we do the health, and then over here we have the businesses development, then over here we're doing the environment. You really have this all meshed together. So how do you focus on doing that for environmental quality while doing all these other services to enhance the community itself?
Well, I think that, of course, Alexei will describe how we came about building our green building. But part of that required such an education, not just for the board, but for executive staff, all of our staff. That was a real project we took on to learn, what does it mean to be sustainable? What does it mean to be environmentally responsive? We know we're already being socially responsive. And well-being isn't just a trip to the doctor, which is why we have the circle of care. So learning more programs and more ways that we can, be friendly to the environment, and then how to pay attention to certain conditions that really will affect people's health. Like if they're living in very poor, old buildings and so forth that maybe then promote asthma. There's triggers of asthma.
Or they're not getting enough sleep. There's too much disruption from the streets into the building. I mean, all these things are going on. It's interesting to hear about what India, China, places like that are doing to make sure people get enough sleep, so that they're able to go out and function in the community and their jobs and support back to the community. Looking at this fantastic building, I know we're going to be able to talk about this a little later, but this is the Lee Gold building that you have. You're very proud of it. But looking at what are you doing, and we got about 20 seconds. Okay. What kind of best practices are you able to share across the United States and around the globe?
Best practices is our circle of care, and also our environmentally responsive programs that we've launched in the community, and what difference that has made to our neighborhoods.
Oh, I think it's absolutely fantastic. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
And this is Zara Marselian. She is the founder, president, CEO of La Maestra Community Health Centers, La Maestra Foundation. Thank you for being with us. And thank you, Duville, for being with us as we look at this beautiful circle of care, as we look around the globe to create the Emerald Planet.
I need a job.
Necesito trabajo.
I would like to speak English better.
Me gustaría hablar inglés mejor.
I want to be a U.S. citizen.
Quisiera ser ciudadano de los Estados Unidos.
For over 35 years,
Por más de 35 años,
the Hispanic Committee of Virginia has been serving our community.
el Comité Hispano de Virginia ha estado sirviendo a nuestra comunidad.
Job training and placement,
Capacitación, ayuda para conseguir trabajo,
education for children and adults,
educación para niños y adultos,
immigration, naturalization, and medical referrals.
ayuda para los procesos de inmigración y naturalización, y orientación sobre médicos
Are a small part of what we do.
son solo una pequeña parte de lo que hacemos.
For help, information, or to volunteer,
Para ayuda, información o para ofrecerse como voluntario,
contact the Hispanic Committee of Virginia,
comuníquese con el Comité Hispano de Virginia,
helping everyone participate more fully in American society.
ayudando a todos a participar plenamente en la sociedad norteamericana.
Hey, Lena, where's yours?
we're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello, welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. in the United States, looking for those 1,000 best practices, technologies, services, products, and of course the people that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And we're looking at ways that we're going to be able to reach out to the world as we add 2 billion more people by 2050, and ways that we're providing the food, the fuel, the fiber, but also the education, the health care, all the basic infrastructure that's needed to do all these things. And I have 2 people sitting right here in the studio that are actually experts in all of this. And the first is Zara Marselian, and she is the founder, president, CEO of Maestra, the health clinics, and also the foundation. And then right beside her is Alexei Ochola, and thank you for being here. And he is the corporate secretary, serves with the board, and I understand is also the environmental expert as far as this whole organization is concerned. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you for inviting us to your show.
And this is something exciting, and this building, the beautiful building right behind Zara here, we're going to talk about in a minute. Okay. But tell us a little bit about this quality mix that you have as far as the centers, the foundation, but also really looking at the environment as an integral part to the medical services that you're providing in San Diego.
Well, the building, as you can see, is absolutely, I mean, it's fantastic. From the design phase, as Alexei will explain, all the way to moving in, picking what furniture, whatever. It's really cool to know that all of it is recycled material. It's friendly material that won't harm the environment, and what a cool place for people to work every day and patients to come who are supposed to be achieving health.
But the whole thing about when you look at this building, I mean, this is absolutely magnificent. This is in downtown area. These are in communities that are at risk. Yeah. And this could be transported anywhere on the planet. This could be in downtown Paris, it could be in London, it could be in Tokyo. I mean, Alexei, this is just absolutely a beautiful complex that you have. And it really goes to the quality and the dedication you have, not just to your patients, but the community itself. And I think, Zara, you need to be really applauded for doing all that and having the foresight, but the leadership to just share this with the community as well as people that you're serving.
Well, thank you for that. It's really the board that pushed this along in terms of, being responsive, being open to, many questions like, gosh, what does that mean to build green? And how much more money are we going to have to raise to do this? And we figured, well, heck, we don't know where we're getting this incredible budget, that we had to raise, $20 million. Mm-hmm. So what's the difference? $1 million more, less? We really didn't know how that whole thing was going to play out with the extra cost because we were going for that gold LEED certification.
Mm-hmm. And that's really important. And I know that in actually all the new buildings in Washington, D.C., you have to have LEED certification or they're not going to give you the building permit.
And
anyway,
I think that's great.
And that's the way it should be. And that's something that you provide the leadership for that. Alexei, you have Environmental Champion as one of your many titles that you have. Tell us what that actually means within your organization itself.
What it really means is that I was the one that pushed the board and the executive team to pursue this environmentally friendly building. Mm-hmm. So I had to take the time to explain, the time to educate both myself and the executive team and the board about what it means to have a green building. I was very fortunate that while I was searching for resources and people to talk to, I met a fellow who was one of the original founders of the United States Green Building Council.
Mm-hmm. Which is right in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, one of the guys is from San Diego. Mm-hmm. He was an engineer working with San Diego Gas and Electric, one of the local utilities company. And you may want to know this. The first green building in the United States is in San Diego. Mm-hmm. It houses the City of San Diego's Environmental Services Department.
That's incredible. And I was listening actually to your mayor this morning. He was interviewed for about 30 minutes talking about this cap, you know, this whole thing as far as where the city is going to be by 2035. You're going to have 50% of your greenhouse gas emissions, you know, totally eliminated, 100% green energy. It's incredible. You're in the city where all this is going on around you, that city council and the mayor and many other organizations, the nonprofits, are very much involved in this, Alexei. But Zara is saying about using recycled materials and all those things. Tell us a little bit about that and how that fit in, one, for the budgeting, but secondly, how you're able to identify those materials to even do that.
Well, the U.S. Green Building Council is the one that developed a LEED rating system for an entire building throughout the country, where you have to score a building's use of recyclable material, lighting, environmentally friendly carpeting, paints, and
HVAC.
Everything, yeah.
So using a recyclable material counts as one of the points that you need to earn towards getting a LEED certification.
Right.
And lighting is one of them, and flooring is one of them, and the cabinetry, you have to use a recyclable material for your cabinetry. If you look at our building, all the cabinets are from recycled material. And so that's what we mean by being environmentally friendly, because we have to use recycled material, and recycled material gives us the points towards our LEED certification.
Now, looking at this, I know, Zara, this is something that you looked at, you worked with your board in order to get this, but, you know, many people will say, well, it is more expensive to have, you know, a LEED designated building and all that, but if you look at it long term as far as the energy savings and, you know, again, looking at the greenhouse gas reductions and all these other, and also doing your own renewables, because you have the solar panels that you're using for the energy. What was the final decision that said we need to do this as a LEED certified and designed building?
Well, you know, I'd have to say, after we went through that educational process that Alexei was describing, that involved going to different conferences and meeting a lot of these vendors who became our partners. They wanted to showcase their work. And so, you know, they'd take us and say, gosh, look at this over here. You know, this countertop is made out of recycled milk bottles and so forth. And it was fascinating. And when they actually explained to us, look, this is how much good it's going to be doing to the environment if you go this route and if you use this and that. I mean, it was like a no-brainer. It was not a choice to be had. The more we found out, the more we immersed ourselves into, you know, what does it mean to be environmentally friendly and having a sustainable building, and working with our vendors. They are the ones who showed us all of these different options. And then they worked with us not just by educating us and so forth and bringing people to tour our facilities, but also because they gave us deep discounts.
That's fantastic. That's actually how they really became partners in this whole process.
Exactly.
True partners.
Yeah.
And we didn't know that going in. We just knew we had to go down this road and figure, you know, that when God would introduce us to people, He'd bring us people, and look what happened. Yeah. That's exactly what happened.
It's just the universal law of compensation. What you put out is what you're going to get back. So you're putting good into the community, into the universe, and all of a sudden this is all coming back to you, Alexei. But looking at, we've learned through you what it means about, you know, the green building supplies, the green building materials, the style, using renewable energy and all that. But what is this intersect between the patients, the community, and the staff as far as having this kind of green emphasis and also being in these types of buildings that really are certified as being really environmentally friendly, not only for you but also for the humans?
I'll tell you, the first time we went into the Columbia building where the City Club is, Zara and I looked at that thing and we saw it's a LEED building and said, yes, these people, this is a building that we would like to do business in. Well, because a green building, from our understanding and the design and building our facility, we know that the building is healthy. It does not have volatile organic materials in the carpeting or in the cabinetry or in the paints or in furnishing. So if you're getting into a healthy building, whether you're a staff or whether you're a patient or you're a guest, you automatically feel good.
Well, if you look at this photograph here, which is your big open atrium area and invites people, I mean, it makes you feel better just by the fact of being able to see it. And then, I mean, this is just, it's high energy, it's great colors, but you can tell that people really care about this, Zara, and that really goes back to the leadership of you and your board, and of course, Alexei, you're all part of that, being the secretary. But what have you learned now that you've had almost a half a decade to be in the building? What have you learned by having such a structure, and then now you're rolling it out across your other buildings as well?
Absolutely. Once we got into this beautiful building, I mean, we just couldn't believe that we were in a new building after 20 years being in 14 old, renovated residential properties. They're wonderful, but this was really a huge shock for us. But after being there for 5 years, it's like I see how many other programs that naturally evolved, like participating in weatherization programs, helping people weatherize so they're spending less in utilities, also helping people sign up that have chronic illnesses or seniors to sign up for discounts through our local utilities company. And then sponsoring light bulb exchange and having all kinds of environmental literacy programs right there in where our centers are.
Okay, we've absolutely run out of time. We need to double the amount of time to even talk about this whole thing. But Zara, where do you look to be in the next 5, 10, 15 years as far as all this activity? You got to be quick.
Replicating these models and definitely building green again.
Well, it's really fantastic to have you here, and Alexei, thank you for being all the way from San Diego to talk about this. This is Zara and Alexei. They're with La Maestra, the health centers, and also the foundation as we create the Emerald Planet.
One day these rats were playing in the woods. Well, it's some matches and that's no good. Listen to smoke before you give it a try. Only you. Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Nothing very funny about nothing very nice. Homeless mind. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches, don't play with fire. Yeah.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire.
Why don't you just wash your car at home? When I wash my car, everything runs down the street and down into the storm drains. With all the chemicals in the soaps and waxes, the last thing I want to do is poison my own drinking water.
At least here, it's all contained and recycled on site.
That's why I also take my car in for oil changes instead of doing it myself. I might take a chance on spilling stuff.
You know what the best part is?
What?
More time to kick back and watch the game.
How far would you go to protect the planet?
I want you to build an ark.
Here we go. Okay, that's good. Oh, okay. Ow!
Maybe there's another way.
People, the flood is imminent. Is it too much to ask for a little precipitation?
Go to fightglobalwarming.com to find out what you and your community can do to reduce global warming pollution.
Somewhere around the world, there are men and women of the armed forces risking their lives, helping rebuild communities after natural disasters, collecting toys for needy children, tutoring kids in school. These are your sons and daughters who work to keep us safe, secure, and free. Dedicated men and women who put their country first.
back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello, welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look around the globe on a week-to-week basis looking for those 1,000 best practices. Also, we're looking for the people that are truly committed, making a difference as we go to a planet of some 9 billion people by 2050 and possibly 12 to 13 billion by the end of the century. And so how can we develop right now to make sure that we actually have not only the infrastructure that's needed, but also the economic base that's going to take care of all these new people, and not from the standpoint of just sustaining themselves or being subsistent, but actually to enhance the quality of life so that people have a much higher living standard as well as the style of life which is healthy, wholesome, and harmonious, all put together. And we have a lady that actually has dedicated her whole life to doing that in San Diego and California. This is Zara Marselian, and she is the founder, president, CEO of Maestra, the health centers, and also the foundation. And welcome to the Emerald Planet TV.
Well, thank you for having me here.
Glad to have you, and I tell you, coming all the way from San Diego, I had a chance to hear your presentation before you came on the television program, and you did an absolutely fantastic job because you talked about not only the health care, also all the environmental aspects as far as the structures that you have, because now you're getting almost like a little empire all over San Diego with all these facilities and outreach centers and all these other kinds of things. But at the same time, you felt like you really need to work with the people that were coming in to be able to establish their own businesses, to create jobs within the community, to work with the youth so they have something to do and they're not just hanging out in the community and causing trouble, but they have this education and jobs and entrepreneurship that you're tying together. Tell us a little bit about that and why you feel like, you know, as really a health-focused organization, that you need to incorporate all the entrepreneurship and the enterprise aspects to this.
Well, definitely, that's a fantastic question because, you know, wellness is not just a trip to the doctor, and it takes many, many different services from different sectors to really provide those, I think they're survival needs for people. You know, aside from the community garden that we're going to be hearing more about later, and you know how we're growing the food organically in an urban setting that's usually referred to as a concrete jungle, bringing more green literally there, gosh, making sure people have enough food. All of the elderly that live in our very low-income communities, oftentimes they don't have enough food. And you know, people with large households as well.
And the whole thing about this too, when you're living in urban areas, it really, I guess we could say it's an excuse, but people really don't get out in many cases. They don't exercise, walk sufficiently and all that. And that really ties back into what you're doing as far as your health care, because you want people to eat right, but also to exercise. So if you start adding all these activities, you know, like the gardening and being out in community service, just like the gentleman in this photograph here, you know, using materials from within the community, it just makes a difference to, you know, this mind, body, spirit balance that's so important. I think this is really the core of your mission, this mind, body, spirit balance. Tell us a little bit about that and how then you incorporate the jobs and the entrepreneurship and all that into it.
Sure. Well, you know, our mission does focus on wellness of the family. So how can somebody really achieve wellness and mainstream and be productive members of the community, which they want to be, if they're depressed or they're anxious because of their living conditions, or they're homeless, or they don't have enough food, or they don't have a job and no prospect for a job. Oftentimes people come to San Diego for a variety of reasons, and they can't compete for the few jobs that there are. And you know, there's always somebody that has more marketable skills, or is younger, or has more degrees, and so forth. And it's amazing how entrepreneurial our populations are in our communities that we're in. They're all low-income communities, and they're very industrious, and they find ways to basically preserve their tradition, whether it's through traditional recipes, cooking, artwork, and sharing that and selling and having income then for themselves. Pretty soon they're employing people in their immediate neighborhood, and you know, it's amazing. That's how you bring money into the community, is by empowering people to grow and expand their businesses. And pretty soon it's flowering. It's flowering.
Now, all these word images, you know, about the growing and flowering, and we're looking at it right here because this is the epitome of really green jobs. In many areas, this is where it's really going. You know, we've got away from this agrarian society, you know, in the 150 years industrialization and moved into the service sector. Now it's high technology, and yet at the same time, Zara, and this is what you're finding with the people in San Diego, is that we're going back to many of these traditional skills, and all of a sudden people become almost instantly employed because they can grow it in their own yards or in a flower box, you know, in their high-rise apartment building, and then be able to sell it into the community.
Yes, at the farmers market that we've also made connections with, and of course we collaborate with every organization, whether it's in the field of health or children's literacy, adult literacy, vocational training. We're a very big champion for bringing opportunities to youth that are in low-income communities so that they see that they can pursue these wonderful careers, vocational training, or having their businesses. And that's basically the skills that we bring to them.
You know, and looking at this too, and this is something you and I were talking about right before we came on, about this empowerment of youth and to engage youth. This is something, how do you reach out to those youth? And through these slides, we're also seeing is that you have the adults working with the youth to do these things. And again, I think that goes back to this essence of networking and collaboration that you have with La Maestra itself, is that you really foster all these things. So it's a mindset. You come in, it's almost like, you know, instantly you get hooked as you walk in the door of these beautiful buildings that you have. But how do you get it so that the adults and the youth are working together and they're not looking at this, you know, educational and age divide that you have in many other communities?
Well, precisely, I think, because in many low-income communities, those are the two age cohorts that are marginalized. There's not enough activities for teens, there's not enough activities for seniors. It's hard for them to get out and to wander around the streets. You know, it's not exactly a safe place to go, and, you know, especially during certain hours. And so our patients, even though you'll be hearing from our medical director, you know, we're working on prevention of chronic disease, and that involves good nutrition and exercise. And so where are the opportunities in many of these low-income communities that don't have rec centers, or the parks are not safe, or it's not safe even for the kids to be walking back and forth to school? So we have to find other alternatives, and what better than to add on and give the message or the education in adjacent buildings and programs to our health centers.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that they found in many of your large cities, you know, like in New York, Chicago, you know, LA, and not just in San Diego itself. But the more green that you bring into the area, and the more that people have ownership of that tomato plant or that tree or some little area of grass, all of a sudden they want to clean up around it. They want to make sure that people are not destroying that. So how do you incorporate that into the philosophy and also the education that you're providing to the youth, the adults, but also the patients that come in through your health centers?
Again, it's by employing people and bringing in volunteers from the community.
So it really goes back to volunteerism.
Yes, absolutely, because I mean, everybody, even those employees that are paid, they all have that spirit of volunteerism and that that drive to help their fellow, you know, human beings, basically, and knowing that at the end of the day, because you were there in that place, working with those people, you really made a difference in somebody's life. And that's what we all strive for.
Now, looking at this photograph here, I think this really tells much about your organization, as the fact is that many of these people probably in their whole life never had a diploma. They never had a certificate of completion or some kind of official thank you. And you're really demonstrating to them that if you come in, you dedicate yourself, you become part of the system, you will be recognized. How are you seeing this across these 25 years, that recognition and applauding people, in real ways, concrete ways they can take back to their families, is really important as far as your organization, but also into the community, which is part of what we're talking about here.
Sure, because those then become the leaders of tomorrow. They become the role models for others to look at and say, gee, they were able to do it, I can go do that too. And it's the very first, I think, purpose and need is to create access. So there are training programs for people who can't afford to go to university, college without some stipend, without assistance. And we do lots of internship programs. We work with all the residency schools, and we also give stipends to our employees who want to keep pursuing their education and bringing back to the community.
Looking at, we have almost no time left, but we have enough for 2 questions. We never have enough time when we're talking with you about this. What outreach programs do you see as really the ones that stand out in your mind that could be replicated other places, that really help to link the community, your organization, and the city itself? Go back to the city itself. And of course, it's trying to be very progressive.
Yes, well, outreach definitely has to be through people from the community that speak the languages, so that when they're out there providing the outreach, they relate, and it has to be their passion to really reach out to people and give them that information that they need, and help sign them up, and basically be navigators, be that lighthouse for them out in the community, and show them how to network back into our circle of care. And that's really what it's all about, is really having that conduit between the community and the health center.
That's fantastic. This is Zara Marselian, and she is the president, CEO, and founder of La Maestra Community Health Centers, La Maestra Foundation. And thank you for being with us as we look at these folks that are just very much involved in the community, leading the way as we create the Emerald Planet.
So they say it's a man's world? I don't see anybody's name on it.
While they were doing their thing, we slowly changed all that.
Today, women can do anything men can do. And there's one thing we're even better at.
Open enrollment is back. Enroll Virginia wants you to get covered for 2016 and beyond. You have until January 31st to enroll in affordable health care. If you wish to have coverage by January 1st, you must enroll by December 15th. That's less than a month from now. Remember, the penalty for not having health insurance next year is a minimum of $695 per person. Don't think twice about it. To find an enrollment event near you or to get free help with the application, visit our webpage or give us a call. El periodo de inscripción ha comenzado. Enroll Virginia quiere que tú y tu familia tengan cobertura médica este próximo 2016. Tienes hasta el 31 de enero para inscribirte. Si deseas cobertura desde el 1 de enero, debes inscribirte antes del 15 de diciembre. Recuerda que si no tienes cobertura el próximo año, te multarán una suma mínima de $695 por cada adulto. No lo pienses más y visita nuestra página para más información o para ayuda con la solicitud.
Hey, Hard, what's this? That's my resignation letter. You're resigning. Why? Because you're constantly ignoring me. You're half as active as you used to be, and you eat stuff like this. You've been putting me under a lot of pressure lately. That's why I'm ready to quit. I forgot. I'll do better. Please, don't quit on me. Okay. But remember, it's not what you say. It's what you do.
Listen to your heart. Don't let it quit on you.
Let's go for a walk.
Uncontrolled high blood pressure could lead to a stroke, heart attack, or death. Get yours to a healthy range before it's too late.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet, and thank you for being with us as we come to you on a week-to-week basis looking around the globe, 144 different nations, looking for those technologies, services, products, and the people that are making a difference. And as we go to a planet of 9 billion people, how are we going to be able to reach out and provide the various services that they need, but also to make sure that they're fully engaged, they're involved, and at the same time that they're contributing into their community. And that's becoming even more difficult as the United States has gone to 80% urbanization, where most of the people are living in urban areas, is that how do we actually engage them when your people are being removed from the land and they feel like that maybe there's not really a place for them within these urban areas. And we have someone sitting right beside me that's doing this for a long time. I want to introduce her in just a minute, but we have two people coming in from San Diego in telemedicine and telehealth, and thank you for being with us. This is Dr. Javier Rodriguez. He is the medical director and also a pediatrician, and sitting right beside him is Sonia Tucker. She is the director of quality improvement, and she's going to tell us what that means in just a few minutes. And they're both with the La Maestra Community Health Centers, and I have the great pleasure of having the president, the founder, and the CEO of this whole gigantic organization. This is Zara Marselian, and she has been with 25 years. I don't know if Dr. Rodriguez, you've been 25 years there with the organization, but this outstanding lady has certainly been there throughout that whole time. And among the three of you and all the others, this is really a giant organization that you have. But Xavier, tell us a little bit about what is telehealth or telemedicine, as many people know it, and how is it utilized by your organization?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. I've been with the organization for about 10 years now. This past August, 10 years. Like Zara was saying earlier in the program, we choose to be here. We love to be here. We want to be here. And I want to be able to say that I can be there 25 years, not so hopefully distant future. 15 years is a long time, but hey, 10 years went by and it seemed like it went like a vapor. But telemedicine, that is a component, if you will, of something that's been now coined telehealth. The ability to see patients in a non-traditional sort of manner, where you look at the traditional model of patients coming to you, and then you see them there, and then you send them out, if you will, for the day or for follow-up or for a referral. Oftentimes, a referral is a good example of how to utilize telemedicine. There in San Diego, our patients, many of them live at or below the poverty level, and transportation is a huge issue for them. And many of our providers there do a lot of outside referrals due to the nature of the patient populations that we serve. Again, many below the poverty level, but as well as immigrant populations that never seen a doctor before, been in a hospital or a clinic setting, never had labs before, and all of a sudden they now have a thyroid disease. We've been using telemedicine there at La Maestra Community Health Centers for about 10 years now. And I remember, speaking of the thyroid disease, one young lady, immigrant from Mexico, who saw me, and we figured out she had some thyroid diseases issues, and we were not able to get her into the local children's hospital there because it was very expensive for them to be seen there. Luckily, at the time, we had a grant with UC Davis, and I was able to have the patient presented to an endocrinologist, an adult endocrinologist, who was comfortable with seeing teenagers, as pediatrics, as you mentioned. And there I was able to myself learn what it was to take care of a patient a little more in depth. But our patient was able to be served. We did the labs, we did the medications. It was a win-win situation for everybody.
That's fantastic. Sonia, tell us a little bit about the telehealth and how it helps to reduce barriers. I think Javier was sharing that with us, but also marginalized populations have real needs as far as, you know, the cost of health care for one, but many times they just don't have transportation to even come in to your health facilities, even though you're in the community, you're some cases maybe within walking distance, but there's a mental barrier many times to have between those that really need the services and the service provider, just like your organization. Tell us how the telemedicine, telehealth is helping to reduce those barriers.
You know, it's very interesting to see how telehealth or telemedicine helps in these cases. So even though for us, the people that has a car, you think, okay, you know, going to children's hospital, it would take 10-15 minutes. For most of our patients, it doesn't take 10-15 minutes. It takes 2 hours. Not only that is the transportation, the use of the bus, and also the cultural barriers that they encounter when they get over there, because they don't know if they're going to speak the language, if there's going to be a translator. By the way, at La Maestra, we speak many different languages and dialects, and we do have translators for about 27 of them. So we make sure that we coordinate to have all those translators present when a patient is coming. So with telehealth or telemedicine, what we have been able to accomplish is a very environmentally friendly way to have our patients be served by specialists, because not only we do it, you know, with the best specialists that we have in the nation, we also do it, the patient doesn't have to use transportation. The translation is present in a good translation, and not only that, is the cultural part that also plays an amazing, important role in this case, because our translators understand the culture that our patients are coming from, so they are able to communicate that to the specialist. So it's not only you know, transportation, is also how they live and how we can better serve our patients. That is something that we do with telehealth.
And I think that's really important, Sonia, because you're able to reach into the community, and many times through the telemedicine, telehealth, it may be actually more convenient because you have the translator in the household. It's a family member, maybe a youth that's in school, or somebody's there helping their grandmother or great aunt or something like that. Because there's many extended family members in many of these inner city homes. So I think that, Sonia, what you pointed out is really critical to do all that. I think we're keeping up with our folks in San Diego, Zara, very nicely. So why don't you ask the next question?
Okay, great. Well, Dr. Rodriguez, could you tell us what you think or what you've heard from the patients that have received services via telemedicine, telehealth? Give us some of your feedback, or a quick story would be great.
Yeah, well, recently we piloted a project with they're at Rady Children's Hospital in San Diego with their ear, nose, and throat division. Like I mentioned earlier, we've been sending a lot of patients to them, and we always have, but we've noticed that there have been a lot of no-shows to their appointments, again, due to the transportation issues, the interpretive issues, and things like that. So a couple months ago, we started that pilot, and we saw 3 patients in a brief period in the morning on a Saturday. They came in even on a Saturday. One family was Somali, another Hispanic. Actually, 2 were Hispanic and 1 Somali. One of them did know English. They were already second generation Americans. The other ones were first generation, or just had arrived several years before. So we had our Somali interpreter there. Again, we hire from the community, like Zara says, we are these cultural liaisons, and they that was one of the roles that they serve. And the visit went very well. We had the specialist, the ENT surgeon on the other side. I was in the room as well seeing the patients. I was driving all the equipment needed so we can look in their ears, in their mouth, in their throat, also listen to the heart and lungs. It was a really neat experience. The visits went very smooth. The patients, especially the Somali family, said that she was very comfortable. She was very happy that we did have that available to her, and we were able to set up follow-up appointments. And that is one thing that I did realize that day is like once they got comfortable then with the other doctor on the line or on the computer screen, that they would be more apt to go to their actual appointment instead of no-showing it as they had before.
That's absolutely fantastic. Sonia, looking at the reduced costs, this is something that's very important, near and dear to your CEO and president sitting right beside me, but also to provide more health services. If you're spending a lot of money on just trying to reach a few, and if you can use this technology and reach more and yet reduce the overhead, that just provides you with that much more funds to be put back into healthcare services. So what are you seeing as far as the reduced costs by using this telehealth, telemedicine type system?
Yeah, in fact, right now we're piloting a program with one of our health partners where we are implementing telehealth or telemonitoring in this case for high utilizer patients. So what, you may ask, what is a high utilizer patient? It's a patient that, comes to the doctor a lot or goes to the ER a lot or, gets admitted a lot. And that, as you can imagine, is pretty expensive. So what we're doing is we are installing a telemonitoring machine in their house. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to be able to monitor these patients every single day. So there's going to be vital signs are going to be taken. The patient is to be taught how to do this, and remotely that information is going to get transferred to our electronic health record, and it's going to be, this information is going to be reviewed by a appointed or provider champion. And the patient, if the patient needs to be contacted to make sure that everything is going well, the patient will be contacted.
Sonia, I'm going to lose you right now because you're at distance. Zara, what do you see for the growth and development of La Maestra over the next 5, 10, 15 years?
Well, telemedicine is definitely going to be expanded.
And you think this is one of the areas, big growth area as far as you're concerned?
Sure, that's how to increase access to specialty and to many services.
Thank you for being with us on Emerald Planet TV.
So much.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
As we create the Emerald Planet.